Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Allie Johnson, President of North Central Civic Engagement Club. I'm excited to welcome you all to our school board and city council debate for 2025. Out of respect for all our candidates, we ask that you please refrain from negative interruptions and please silence your cell phones. Now, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here are the debate rules for this evening. Each debate will run for roughly 25 minutes with a 5-minute intermission after each session. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer the question asked by moderators. They will also have 2 30-second rebuttals that can be used throughout the debate. Candidates will 45 seconds for closing statements at the end of the debate. I will now introduce the moderators for our first debate. Senior Gabby Philippi and Senior Daisy Tudor as student moderators, and Eliza Billingham from Spokane Public Radio. The candidates for the school board race are Jessica Anundson and Hilary Kozel.
Hello.
Good evening. Ms. Anundson, why do you want this position?
So, Anundson, my last name is Jessica Anundson, so you're here, right?
Sorry.
So I want this position because we need a voice on our school board of working families. When I'm elected, I will be the first person in a very long time to have an elementary school student currently in District 81, and we need that representation because representation matters.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel, why do you want this position?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the North Central Civic Engagement Club for hosting this. It's wonderful to see everybody here tonight. I want this position because I've spent 2 years minimum getting ready for it. I was unanimously appointed 2 years ago by the school board over 10 minimum very qualified other candidates. And I said that I would run in 2 years, and I'm doing it not just because I said I would, but because I love the job. I've spent 2 years working very hard, showing up and listening, and I'm ready to go. And this is a 2-year, it's important to know this is a 2-year term that we're running for. So I'm your best investment.
Thank you. I just want to check with the candidates. Are you able to see our time cards down here in the orchestra pit? All right. Oh. Well, then we as moderators...
Not really.
Okay. Timekeepers, can you hold up that sign again?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Visible at all?
Thank you.
Thank you. Can
Gotcha.
you hold up
Thank
the second one?
Was that a hint that I spoke too long?
No, not at all.
Which is so
not
on par.
At all. 15 should be a
Brevity
little bit
is not
easier
my
to
strong
see.
suit. Okay. Thank you.
And then that red 0 will come up when your time is complete. So timekeepers, just try to hold those up as high as you can so we can see them from the stage. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No
Hilary,
problem.
we're going to start with you this time.
Great, thank you.
What would be your top priority if you were elected?
Well, my first thought when I read that was, of course, funding, because public education is historically underfunded. But I think I want to hone in on something that we started last year, which is updating our cell phone and technology use policy. We've made strides. Attendance is up. Negative behaviors are down. Kids are getting off their phones and engaging in real life. And again, this is another perfect example of that tonight. Everybody is here in person connecting. And so it's really exciting to see everybody here. So just continuing on with our cell phone use policy.
Thank you. Jessica, we'll go to you.
Sure. So my top priority is based on a lot of conversations I've had over the last year. It's based on parents who want to be heard and want to know how to use the system. I'm going to work to help more of the students, like my son, who was 1 year old when COVID happened, make sure we have teachers trained with behavioral health, make sure we have all the resources all of our students need to succeed, not just a few. That includes the homeless youth that we have in Spokane, includes making sure, just like Hilary said, funding, to make sure we have funding for all of our options programs, because those are the programs that make sure our students aren't falling through the cracks.
Thank you. Ms. Anundson, we'll start with you. SPS invested in vape detectors in school bathrooms. Despite this effort, this has not been effective in deterring use. What other methods would be effective in combating this issue of vaping and use of other drugs?
So this is a very good question, because I graduated high school in 2006, and I think we were talking about similar things at that time. What we did was incentivize not using and educating students about the benefits. You're never going to get everyone, but at least by incentivizing, you give people something to go forth towards.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard mixed reviews about the sensors, mainly because there might be a group of people in the bathroom, and so you're not able to figure out which one of them is vaping. I think, kind of piggybacking off of my opponent's comment, is just getting to the health consequences and really educating about why is somebody vaping. There is still so little data on the effects of vaping that hasn't come out yet. It might be 10, 20 years with popcorn lung, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's just really getting to the root cause of why somebody's vaping. Is it stress? Are you anxious? What is making you do this behavior, and what can we do to support you to stop it? So again, just having those supports.
Thank you.
Ms. Anundson. Spokane schools moved to eliminate one-to-one devices for this school year, promising 200 additional laptops for North Central students to check out. This likely will not be adequate for our high school, as we have a free and reduced rate of about 70%. This means that access to technology at home is very limited for a large population of the school. Given the school board's equity resolution of 2021, how do you address this apparent inequity regarding technology at home?
Thank you for the question, because that is truly inequitable. In my day job, I work on a technology team doing training and healthcare training for people outside of high school, but we are every day trying to figure out how we can help our members and students, and there are so many equity technology programs around this country that we could, if we can't afford to bring devices to all students like we have in the past, there are programs out there for us to be advocating to make sure all students have the devices that they need to succeed.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel. Spokane schools moved to eliminate one-to-one devices for this school year, promising 200 additional laptops for North Central students to check out. This most likely will not be adequate for our high school, as we have a free and reduced lunch rate of about 70%. This means that access to technology at home is very limited for a large population of the school. Given the school board's equity resolution of 2021, how would you address this apparent inequity regarding technology at home?
Thank you for that question. I happen to know a little something about that as an incumbent. Last spring, the district leadership came to the board and said 30%, only 30% of laptops that go home with students who, it was a one-to-one checkout, one student per laptop, only 30% of those laptops per the data by our IT department were turned on. So that seemed kind of like a no-brainer. Well, let's just give students that need that access, that equitable access to laptops, let's allow them to check them out, but otherwise we will convert the computer use to what we call cows, or computers on wheels, so that they would just access them during the day. Because obviously if 70% of students who check out laptops aren't using them at home, why have them take it home, risk damage to the computer, which is then a liability for them. That sounded really good. It was a great way to save money for the district and still provide equitable access to students. Well, that's not how this has rolled out this year. And I will just echo what our
Thank you for
superintendent
your response.
said.
Your time is
Sorry,
up.
it was a 4 out of 10, and I agree. So we're working on it.
Thank you.
And Hilary, we're going to stay with you. This
Okay.
question is a little bit broader.
Okay.
North Central was heavily affected by the boundary changes made in 2021, and NC staff were told that the school would receive additional support and funding for students of low socioeconomic status. What is your plan to fulfill this promise going forward?
So thank you for the question. I was a parent engaged in the district with that boundary study, and it was controversial, and it was really difficult for a lot of people that worked really hard on that. But now it's time to reassess and see how things are going. So that is one of the board's priority strategies for the year, is to reassess that boundary study so that we can make sure that all students' needs are being met.
Great. Jessica, we're going to go to you. Would you like the question repeated?
I think I can answer it if you
I
don't
bet
want
you
to have
can.
to read that again.
Thanks.
Perfect. Okay. Actually, we repeat it. I'm going to read it again
Of
because I got
course.
nervous.
So, North Central was heavily affected by the boundary changes made in 2021, and NC staff were told that the school would receive additional support and funding for students of low socioeconomic status. What is your plan to fulfill this promise going forward?
I do agree with what Hilary just said, that the reassessment is important, but we do have this huge financial issue coming up with the federal government cutting funding for some of our most needing programs. So we're going to have to get creative and look at funding in other places that can give us funding than traditional sources. So I will, again, in this position, fight to make sure the funding that was supposed to be allotted finds its way here, but also look for alternative funding sources that we can use so we can continue to move forward.
Thank you. We're going to stay with you. What role should the school board play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
I think this is really a passionate thing for me. I think schools are a place of safety, and everyone should feel safe no matter who they are, where they're coming from, how much money they have, and how they identify. So schools have a role where they can stand as leaders and show students how they should react and be leaders. I do think on a school, I think she's going to put it up there, we need to have a way that is transparent for people to tell their school and know what's happening and following up on what's going on if they do have an issue with that in their schools. And I want to really work to make sure we have that device in place in the next year so parents, students know that what's going on when they have issues.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel, what role should the school board play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
Well, first of all, we have very firm policies. We do have our equity policy. We have a transgender policy. The role of the school board is to create a clear framework of policy so that day-to-day schools can function. We also have diversity advisory groups. We have Native education, parent advisory groups. We have a lot of listening sessions. The most important thing is that students, staff, and families feel heard. And we have a Department of Community and Family Engagement with outreach coordinators for every feeder pattern so that if for some reason these policies aren't being followed, that there is recourse and a pathway. We also have very strong bullying, harassment, and intimidation policies with clear pathways so that students and staff and families know which way to go.
Rebuttal?
Absolutely. Timers, you ready?
I would like to say, yes, there are policies in place and put online and been sent out, but for parents and families that I talk to all over this town from all different points of life, they don't know how to follow through with that. They heard about it once and they don't know what to do next. So we do need to have some education together again to make sure that we can really support those students and families.
Rebuttal. Can I do that?
You sure
Okay.
can.
A rebuttal. I understand that, and I think there is always going to be a disconnect, especially in a district that's the third largest in the state. What I always tell people when I'm out often in the community, talking to students and families, is to start with your school first, and if you're not feeling like your needs are being met, then go to the area advisor and if area director, and you can always reach out to your school board. I'm the board correspondent. I will make sure that your concern gets where it needs to go and that you understand the framework of
Thanks.
what
Your
our
time is
policies
up.
are.
Ms. Kozel,
Yes.
with an uptick in violence in schools in recent years, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
Absolutely not. The data doesn't support that. In 2020, 2021, we adjusted our policies to get commissioned officers out of our schools and instead replace them with community safety specialists under the direction of Randy Moore, who heads up our security. And it has been a transformational experience for our students. I'm not saying that there aren't any issues with discipline, but the data shows that that method of de-escalation with students is much more effective than having an armed officer, which might feel safe to me because of the way I look, but for many of our students, that only escalates behaviors because they feel threatened. So absolutely not.
Thank you. Ms. Anundson, with an uptick in violence in schools in recent years, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
I agree with Hilary. This is going to be a common thing with us. We agree on a lot of things. But I do want to iterate that I don't think police in schools make students feel safer either. I want our students to be showing up. If they're immigrants, I want them to show up. If there was a police in the school, plenty of families I've talked to didn't go back to school with all the ICE raids, so.
Thank you.
That leads very well into our next question, and Jessica, we'll start with you. How would you work to protect legal immigrants scared of ICE raids in schools?
Well, first of all, making sure that it's very clear that we don't let ICE into schools. Schools is a place of safety. It's a place of learning. It's not a place to be threatened. We have state, city ordinances around that, and as a school board, we need to stand up for it and make sure that we are standing up for those students and giving the resources. We have some great organizations in our schools, and I think we're going the right way. We're going the right way in our school district as long as we make sure that we are protecting those students.
Thank you. Hilary, how would you work to protect legal immigrants scared of ICE raids in schools?
Well, we do have a policy that aligns with the Keep Washington Working Act that states that there's no voluntary cooperation with ICE and that schools must remain safe and welcoming for all students. We're actually working on affirming that policy by instructing the frontline employees who might be in contact with ICE what to do, if they can teaching them to determine the difference between a judicial warrant and not a judicial warrant. So, but we ensure through our policy that all students are safe and protected.
Thank you. We'll stay with you, Ms. Kozel.
Okay.
What programs does SPS have in place for students experiencing homelessness? What would you change about these programs to better support our students?
Well, we have too many students that are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, over 1,000. We have a very strong program called the HEART program. I would like to see that developed further. There is always a fund drive every year that I support, and I would encourage everybody else to as well. We also abide by the McKinney-Vento Act, which provides whatever a homeless student needs in terms of transportation so that they can get their needs equitably met.
Thank you. Ms. Anundson, what programs does SPS have in place for students experiencing homelessness? What would you change about these programs to better support our students?
So in addition to what Hilary is mentioning, we also have this great program to help homeless youth get their GEDs and get off and on their ways. And then after they get their GEDs, they go on the apprenticeship. My nephew just went through the program, so I'm very proud of that because he would never have done it without that program. The one thing I'd like to figure out, and it might already be happening, but crosswalk is so far from where where we have the GED program. It'd be great to be able to figure out a more equitable way so that they're being able to connect all the resources in one place.
Thank you.
Ms. Anundson, since 2022, SPS and STA have partnered to transport high school students to and from school. However, students complain that buses are overcrowded, the STA schedule doesn't align with SPS hours, and the STA schedule being unreliable. What will you do to ensure students get to school safely and on time?
Well, there's definitely going to need to be, I know there are discussions with STA all the time, but to find those and make sure that we're putting the schedule in a place at those larger amounts of students getting on the bus, so we have them in closer increments. I drive by a high school every morning on the way to drop my kid off at school, and kids are pouring out of buses, and when they get picked up, it's gridlock free from the cars around it. So the other thing I'd like to do is make sure we have covered areas near the schools and benches and places where people can be safe while they're waiting for the bus.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel, since 2022, SPS and STA have partnered to transport high school students to and from school. However, students complain that buses are overcrowded, the STA schedule doesn't align with SPS school hours, and the STA schedule being unreliable. What will you do to ensure students get to school safely and on time?
Well, we just need to continue communication and continuing partnering with not just STA, but other community organizations that can help mitigate those issues. It's a wonderful partnership. It gets students where they need to go. It saves the district money, and it really is an important life skill, teaching students how to, and teachers. We're now doing experiential learning, field trips where kids go, even in elementary school, go on STA instead of having to pay to schedule a school bus. So it's wonderful. It's really a wonderful concept, but there's clearly a lot more work that needs to be done, just more communication and more partnering.
Hilary, we're staying with you.
Yes, okay.
While there are 2 student members on the school board, what would you do to provide more student voice in decision-making processes?
Well, I think a school district is better when we have more student voice. One thing that we've slowly been getting, and I think last year was really a wonderful experience, and we just hope to continue to grow it, is a student voice group, which happens once a month. It's students from every high school come together once a month, and it moves around to different schools, and it's really bringing an issue that is on the minds of district leadership and the school board, and how would you like to see this happen? We have a school climate survey that we do every year, and the scores have just been kind of stagnant, like, yeah, the climate's kind of okay, but it's kind of been okay for years. So we went to the students last year, and they gave amazing feedback. So having more of these student voice groups than what we already do. And again, I missed a school board meeting for the first time because we swore in our second student advisor. I'm really excited for that. But just the more student voice, the better, like tonight.
Thank you. Jessica, while there are 2 student members on the school board, what will you do to provide more student voice in decision-making processes?
I can't act like I did in German class when I was in high school, because what Hilary's talking about is exactly what I think we need to do. Even if we could bring some more leadership within those smaller groups, so people have more chance to be a leader and be a voice, so they can put it on their resume if they want to go to a job after school or go to college. Those always help.
Thank you. Ms. Anundson will stay with you. How do you plan to involve parents and the community in decision-making processes?
The biggest thing that I've learned over the last 6 months is that we need to have a listening season or listening sessions across this town for all parents, grandparents, people that are involved with the school, and figure out what they want and what they need. Because it feels, for a lot of parents, they aren't being heard.
Thank you. Ms. Kozel, how do you plan to involve parents and the community in decision-making processes?
Well, I do need to praise our Department of Community and Family Engagement. They actually do conduct listening sessions with various groups within our community. We could always do better, but those folks work really hard with outreach. We do have a Citizens Advisory Committee that meets once a month, and that's if you're new to the district, if you have a young child, I would recommend a way to kind of learn about the school system, the 3rd largest district in the state, to join a Citizens Advisory group, be a part of your school's parent-teacher group. Because those are the people that we learn from as a school board and help us make those policy decisions. We learn from people that are in day-to-day in school so that we can make that framework that I was talking about. So we have Citizens Advisory Group, and again, we have those listening sessions, but we can always do more. We have coffee with SPS once a month. Our communications department does a really good job of letting parents know that they can always click on SpokaneSchools.org and click on the Let's Talk tab, and they get a turnaround usually within a day.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Go for it.
Awesome. So the coffees at 8:30 in the morning are one of the reasons that I am running, because it's not a time for working parents. The people that I hear from are the working parents, not the people who have time to be on these committees. So we need to find a way to reach them.
Rebuttal? A perfect example of something, I understand that, a perfect example of something that works for working families are the town halls that we had regarding the upcoming partnership, the school bond and the parks levy. I attended all but one, and they were wonderful opportunities for families to come. It was from 6 to 7, and we didn't always just talk about the school bond or the parks levy. So there are always opportunities for parents to get engaged, whether, regardless of the schedule. But do we need to do more? Absolutely.
Thank you. And that is our debate for the school board.
Okay. Thank you.
You guys want to come up and shake hands?
I'm going to. Hello, everyone. We are ready to start our second debate. If you all can take a seat, please.
So sorry. Make sure we get rid of the school. Make sure we have the city council questions up and not the school boards.
NC students will be around to distribute ballots and pens, so please be sure to cast your vote and turn it in on the way out. Our second debate tonight is for City Council District 1. The candidates for this race are Jonathan Bingle and Sara Dixit. Please give them a warm welcome.
Good evening. Mr. Bingle, we shall start with you. Why do you want this position?
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say thanks to everybody who's here. It's exciting to see so many young people ready to participate in their local government. Pretty soon, you guys are going to be the ones running for these positions, and so it's exciting for me to look out here and be with you today. I'm running for this position because I think District 1 deserves a leader who's born and raised in that area, understands the issues of the district, and is a person who can make sure that it is the best place to live, work, and play. You know, I have 3 young children. I went to school here. My business resides in District 1, and the future of District 1 and the city of Spokane is very near and dear to my heart, because if Spokane is a place that our kids don't want to put down roots and invest in, then my children may choose to move away. So I'm very invested in making sure that Spokane is the place where we all see a future for ourselves, and that's why I want this position.
Thank you. Ms. Dixit, why do you want this position?
Absolutely. I love Spokane. So I'm not from here, but I choose to live here because I love it so much. And I believe that as a city, we are really leading the nation in progressive policies that are working. We are the first to pass measures like ban the address, which supports employment for folks who are unhoused. We are passing extremely successful zoning laws as well. So I think we're on the right track, and I believe District 1 deserves progress, and I believe that we deserve someone who's going to show up and someone who's going to be accountable to the people. And we believe that belonging is one of our mottos here in Spokane, but we need to make sure that's more than just lip service, but something that we actually can live and feel every day, regardless of our background, our income, our religion, our race, etc. So I'm running because I really love it, and I want other people to love it too.
Thank you.
Sara, we're going to stay with you. What would be your top policy priority if you were elected?
Absolutely. I believe here in Spokane, we should not be seeing as many traffic fatalities as we're seeing based on car violence. So we should adopt the Vision Zero program. So what that means is essentially doing infrastructure to ensure people are safe from getting from point A to point B without being harmed. So whether that is you using a bike, like I do, using the public transit, like our STA buses, using a car, or walking, you should be able to do that safely and not fear for your life. So we as a city can do a lot to implement policies that are effective and inexpensive to really change the game in terms of our safety in our streets. And I believe that Complete Streets is a great step in the right direction, but we need to continue and put more infrastructure down so that we invest in our safety, because no one should be dying because of car violence.
Jonathan, same question. What would be your top policy priority?
Yeah, what I've spent the last 4 years focusing on, and what I intend to do for the next 4 years, is really focus on the public safety of the city. Specifically when it comes to folks who are dying of fentanyl overdose. So we're on track to lose 500 people this year from fentanyl overdose in the city of Spokane. If that were a mass murderer, everybody would be on the streets right now looking for that individual. But for whatever reason, we don't seem to have a sense of urgency as a city to address an issue that is killing hundreds of our people every single year. And so for me, it will continue to be strengthening the drug laws that we have in place to put people away who are dealing drugs and bringing that into our streets, and also to lobby the state to help us with laws to help involuntarily commit folks who are clearly overdosing and hurting themselves. For example, a proposal I put forward and failed at the city, but I will try to do again, is that if you overdose and we give you Narcan and that brings you back to life, that would be an immediate trigger to put you into rehab.
Thank you.
Mr. Bingle, we'll start with you. Homelessness has been a rapidly increasing issue in Spokane. What further actions would you consider to combat this situation?
Yeah, homelessness, depending on who you're talking to, you have a bunch of different factors. One of them is housing, and I'm really proud of this council. A couple of the candidates you're going to hear later today, Council members Zappone and I, for example, have partnered on a lot of bipartisan legislation that have led to record numbers of housing units being produced in the city of Spokane. I'm really proud of that work. I think we need a stronger emphasis in home ownership, because one day you're going to want to be able to own a home. And right now, and I know that that is really out of reach for a lot of folks. And so we've been working on a lot of zoning changes, including things like cottage-style housing, to where we can build maybe smaller houses on smaller lots that are more attainable for a first-time home buyer, making sure that you one day, when you have a family, are able to produce and build some generational wealth there. Those are the things that we need to be doing. Outside of that, when it comes to homelessness, we really, again, need to be building long-term facilities for folks struggling with substance use disorder and with mental health issues. We are not able to give them the adequate care that they need right now, and those are policies that I've driven and will continue to drive.
Your time is up. Thank you. Ms. Dixit, we'll go to you. Homelessness has been a rapidly increasing issue in Spokane. What further actions would you consider to combat this situation?
I believe our city is going in the right direction, implementing the model of scatter sites. So right now we have 8 throughout the city, and I believe we should be investing more in those because they have proven to be successful. We also need to make sure we have low barrier shelters. So that is an extremely huge crisis, especially as we're approaching winter. And we know winter comes every year, right? So we need to have a plan in place so that we're able to anticipate the needs of our community members. And the big thing is making sure people are staying housed in the first place. So passing measures like rent stabilization is extremely important, and that's something my opponent is against. And making sure that we have housing that is creative. So in West Hills, we have a partnership when it comes to Waters Meat that is putting up tiny homes, and that is a solution that is getting people housed as soon as possible. And we know that those are evidence-based and things that work in different communities. So it's important to look at the data and look at the evidence and make sure that we aren't reinventing the wheel, because that is much more expensive and costly for our city.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my opponent says that we're moving in the right direction when it comes to homelessness. I could not disagree more. Since the new home ordinance was passed, we saw 120 contacts with individuals on the streets. 0 received services because they denied services. 0 were arrested for unlawful behavior. And what we've seen in the last 3 months since that ordinance was passed is we've gone from about 30 people on the streets downtown to well over 300. I don't think that's moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
Mr. Bingle, the cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and housing is a main driver in this issue. What policies would you implement to make housing affordable for young adults and families?
Yeah, I think we've talked about that a little bit, but I'm really excited about the work that we've done on the council and some more incredible things that we need to do. So one of Spokane's greatest or most innovative neighborhoods is what we call Kendall Yards. Kendall Yards is really illegal outside of the boundaries of Kendall Yards. What we need to do is we need to expand that boundary and allow that style housing to be built all across the city, because again, that was a way that folks who couldn't exactly afford to purchase a home were able to purchase a home. Now, it became a very expensive place to live, but when it first came online, you could buy a house there for less than $200,000. Those are the kinds of things that we need to be doing across the city to make sure that housing remains affordable for people, that you can step into home ownership when you're ready. Because most of the renters in our city are actually ready to step into home ownership if it was just available to them, and it's not right now. Those are the policies that I'll continue to focus on, relaxing our zoning restrictions, relaxing our energy codes, relaxing the things that are making cities or housing costs more to where you can afford a house.
Thank you, that is time. Ms. Dixit, the cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and housing is a main driver in this issue. What policies would you implement to make housing affordable for young adults and families?
Absolutely. Affordability is a huge issue that we're hearing at the doors from Spokanites just like you. And it's important that we recognize that housing is just one of the costs that people are having to bear the burden of. So making sure things like transit is accessible to them so that they're not having to pay astronomical gas prices, maintenance on cars. We know that federally, everything is really expensive right now through tax cuts for the rich and through tariffs that are happening through the Trump administration. So everything we can to lower the costs that other people are experiencing is huge. Additionally, making sure that we are limiting sprawl and making sure that we are using policies like upzoning and infill and mixed use spaces so that, for example, you can have restaurants and businesses on the first floor and then housing above it is much more effective in terms of making housing more affordable and more available, because we're having an issue when it comes to prevention and also keeping people homed. And we want to make sure that people can choose to stay where they're living.
Thank you, that is time.
Yes.
But Sarah, we're going to stay with you. With a rise in gun violence in schools in recent years, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
I don't believe there should be police officers in schools, and there's a lot of data to back that up. As was mentioned in the last debate with the school board members, there have been the resource officers seen to be extremely violent to our students, and that has been captured on video and is especially bad for our vulnerable community members who are Black and brown. So knowing that is huge, and also knowing that that contributes to this school to prison pipeline is also a big indication that we shouldn't do that. Having more guns in schools does not make people safer and often exacerbates the problem of mental health and distress of our young people. So what we really need to do is get to the root cause of what's happening with gun violence, and instead of adding more fuel to the fire, making sure we're getting to the root issue.
Jonathan, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. So I would support police officers in schools, but I think that you have to have a really good policy with the school board. Now, I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I asked them this question: should we allow cops in schools? And they said we would rather them be teachers first and cops second. And so one of the things I actually worked with our former police chief on was a pilot program to help train teachers on how to responsibly carry and protect the students in their schools if they so chose to do, and if the school board passed that policy. And so I would support either one of those. I think that it's any time that things like guns are involved, you have to be really careful and make sure that people are well trained, well regulated, understand exactly what they're carrying, the power that they have, but also the real responsibility that we have to protect everybody in this room. And so when done right, I think it could be very effective. The school that I chose, I specifically chose it because they have armed security on site, and I wanted to make sure that my children were safe.
Thanks.
Mr. Bingle, will stay with you. What role should the Spokane City Council play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
Yeah, a lot of these issues are actually outside of the city purview. So a lot of the things that you're going to hear about are just already regulated or mandated at the federal or the state level. And so when it comes to the city, what can we do about abortion? We actually can't do anything about abortion because that's a state level issue. When it comes to marriage, those aren't issues that are within our purview. That is a federal issue. Those aren't things in my view that we should be focused on. City council, what we exist to do really is to provide for the infrastructure and make sure that our people are safe. Those are the things that your city council members should be focused on every day. They should be focused on how can you feel safe when you go downtown. That's what they should be focused on. They should be focused on how can we keep your water rates low because we're doing a good job with our budget. How can we keep your taxes low because we're doing development well in the city and building a wider tax base rather than a taller tax base. Those are the things that we should be focused on because all of these other things not within our city purview.
Thank you. Ms. Dixit, same question. What role should Spokane City Council play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
Yeah, as a young, brown, queer woman, this is extremely important to me. And I believe if our motto in Spokane we all belong, we need to mean that, and we need to follow it up with actual ordinances that establish that. So my opponent obviously does not agree with this and has voted against these measures. But when it comes to LGBTQ rights, there's an ordinance that was passed to ensure folks who are queer and trans are protected here in Spokane, and that law enforcement would not cooperate with outside agencies seeking to prosecute them because that's a waste of resources. It's not their job, and it's also not within our state's purview, right? But we know that that is happening, so it's naive to think that the bans that are happening in Idaho stay in Idaho. So we need to be prepared for that, and we've done similar things when it comes to abortion rights, when it comes to reproductive health care. These are all issues that a city has to pay attention to because we are all community members even though we are women, even though we are trans people, even though we are queer, we matter.
Time is up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Dixit, we'll stay with you. What approach would you take to ensure the safety of citizens downtown on a daily basis?
Yeah, when we're at the doors, safety looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Safety does come up as a big issue, but we also can't assume that one magic solution is going to solve it for everyone. So for some, it's activating our public spaces to make sure that people are able to have fun and rent a little area, be able to throw a party and a permit with the parks. For another person, it's increased lighting so that they feel safe when walking home after a long shift. For others, it's having emergency lights so that they feel safe in case they ever needed it. So our safety has to be multi-pronged, and it can't just be relying on one institution to carry all of the safety for the city, because that is not effective, and if it was, we would already have solved the problem, and we wouldn't be here talking about it.
Thank you. Mr. Bingle, what approach would you take to ensure the safety of citizens downtown on a daily basis?
Yeah, I would say, while my opponent thinks that safety looks different to a lot of people, I would say not getting stabbed is pretty universal. And what we have downtown is we have a serious crime problem downtown. And those are the things that we need to make sure that we're cracking down on. We've got over 170 beds available at the jail. We need to make sure that when folks are committing criminal acts, that we arrest them, we put them away for the time that is necessary for them to rehab themselves, and make sure that the community is safer. And so we need to make sure that we're increasing the size of our police force. We need to make sure that we are arresting criminals who are committing criminal acts. And we need to make sure that folks who are doing drugs in public, again, get the help that they need, or they move on from the city of Spokane. And one of the things my opponent will learn is that any ban in Idaho carries no weight here. No police officer, no sheriff's deputy, no anybody in Idaho has any jurisdiction in the state of Washington or in the city of Spokane.
Can I have a rebuttal?
You can.
Beautiful. So what my opponent is saying is ineffective and extremely expensive. Our jail is already too full, and to build a whole new jail would be extremely inappropriate for our budget deficit that we're experiencing right now. And to his point about Idaho, I've worked in reproductive rights for 10 years, and I know for a fact this has happened, and people are being investigated for things that they shouldn't be. And so it's naive to think that it's not happening just because state laws exist, because we know things like this happen, especially in today's country.
Thank you. Jonathan, we're going to start with you. More students are using public transit due to the recent SDA Youth Zero Fare policy. Do you feel there is enough safe and efficient public transit in Spokane? And if not, what would you do to keep our youth safe, both on and waiting for transport?
Yeah, this is a great question, particularly for our district. So our district has the highest need and the highest ridership when it comes to STA. For us to increase our participation from STA, to increase the routes, increase the service in Northeast Spokane, which is something that myself and my seatmate Councilmember Cathcart have been fighting for a long time. Unfortunately, despite the fact that there were 4 seats that City Council sent of the 7, 2 of us in District 1 were not able to represent our portion of the city. But the biggest impediments to us having more transit in Northeast Spokane is in places like East Hilliard, we have a lot of dirt roads. STA won't service those parts of town because we have dirt roads. Because in the winter, in the wet, in whatever, the buses will get stuck. That is a huge barrier for us. We need to make sure that we're building the roads in that area. This is an area where STA can partner with us. If you see all the concrete intersections, this is a way that STA partnered with us in the past to help us build our roads. That would be a great way for us to increase participation. Also more shuttle service to places like the El Estero, which is a low-income place in our district.
Thanks. Sarah, would you like me to repeat the question?
I have it in front of me, so
Great.
I think I'm okay. So STA is a huge benefit to the community, and public transit is a public good. So I believe in investing in that to increase fast and free fares and buses is extremely important. My opponent says that he supports this, but he actually is a proponent of Uber instead of our bus system, which would be extremely expensive. And I believe that if I were to be elected, I would want to be on the STA board as a believer in public transit to advocate for our district. And Even in a measure that is as simple as a bench, we recently did a project with Spokane Reimagined where we looked at 29 neighborhoods of all in Spokane at the places where there are intersections where there's no shelter and no bench, and we took it upon ourselves to build those benches and paint them ourselves. So I put one in my neighborhood, and that has already received really great feedback from people of showing that we care. Even when I'm not an elected official, that care resonates with people, and I would do that whether I am elected or not.
Thank you. We'll stay with you. How would you work to protect legal immigrants afraid of ICE raids within our city?
Yeah, as a child of immigrants, this is extremely important to me. And as a person who participated in the June 11th protest, where we saw community members being detained unlawfully, it's extremely important because we're seeing this throughout the nation. So council passed a safe and welcome Spokane ordinance, which would create non-public spaces for people who are doing, a block party or something like that. So preventing ICE from sidewalks and from streets. My opponent voted against that. And when I was an organizer, I really focused on know your rights training, so making sure people know their rights here in Spokane. And that needs to be accessible in different languages. That needs to be using illustrations, not just language, because we know those don't always exactly translate. This means our officers need to know what the law is and know how to stand up for community members when ICE agents are going too far and federal agents are, harming our communities, because law enforcement is supposed to protect us and not do the bidding of Trump's extremism.
Thank you. Mr. Bingle, same question. How would you work to protect legal immigrants afraid of ICE raids within our city?
Yeah, as the son of missionaries and somebody who's helped people come to the United States legally my entire life, I'm glad that people choose the United States. It is the greatest country on God's green earth. I'm happy that people want to come here. I know that they're coming here for freedom and economic opportunity, and I'm a big fan of legal immigration. Our safe and welcome ordinance, however, provided people with a false sense of security because it created zones where they were not exclusive. ICE is not going to listen to our local ordinances because of the supremacy clause of the federal government, and our police chief agreed that it was going to provide a false sense of security. It was not going to be helpful. Now, for folks who are here legally, I wrote a letter with my friend Luke Jasmine on behalf of the Haitian community that is here in my district and everybody who came here legally saying, listen, you want to shut off the valve of illegal immigration? I'm totally in with that. We have a lot of folks who came here legally and are struggling through the system. What grace can we provide and what help can we provide for people who came here legally and are now struggling to stay here legally? I've been fighting for that my entire time on council.
Thank you.
Mr. Bingle, will stay with you. What policies or programs would you establish to combat fentanyl and other drug use in Spokane?
Yeah, I think it, again, comes back to you just have to establish a culture that lawlessness is not acceptable. Fentanyl is, doing fentanyl, smoking fentanyl, whatever you're doing, it is illegal. And it's important that we maintain that posture because it's just not beneficial for people to be addicted to a substance like fentanyl. 2 milligrams can kill. Think about a small sugar packet, okay? That small sugar packet is 3.5 grams. You pour that amount of fentanyl out, that can kill 1,750 people. That's how dangerous and deadly it is. It is incredibly important that we make sure that it's illegal. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that folks who are dealing the drugs get the book thrown at them, throw them in jail, and put them in jail for a long time because they are absolutely killing people in our community. Now, for folks who are struggling with that, I've said this before and I'll say it again. We need to be investing in long-term substance use facilities, and we already have the money to do that with our $1590. We don't need to raise taxes. We just need to use those dollars better to better serve the folks in crisis.
Thank you. Ms. Dixit, what policies or programs would you establish to combat fentanyl and other drug use in Spokane?
Yeah, so we know that that substance use disorder is a public health issue and it should be treated as such. So listening to the experts, the folks who are meeting people where they're at on the streets, our service workers, all of those people know exactly what the issue is and know how to treat people who are experiencing substance use disorder. We know that incarceration is not treatment, and it never has been and never will be. And involuntary treatment does not work. And it is ineffective and expensive. And 1590 funds are meant for housing, increasing our affordable housing, making sure we have mental health services, making sure we are doing harm reduction. We know all of these things work, right? So making sure that we aren't reinventing the wheel or assuming that we're going to somehow fix it by incarcerating people. but paying attention to what does work in other cities where they have way less overdose deaths. And we also know that overdose deaths are actually higher for people who are housed and employed. So we also need to, know the facts. Thank you.
Rebuttal. So just in case you don't know what harm reduction is like we're going to help you have the materials you need to do your drugs. We're going to give you the syringes, we're going to give you the pipes, we're going to give you the spaces, okay? And my opponent doesn't support ideas like Proposition 1 that protect parks and schools and daycares and hospitals. And so what this means is that you could have people openly and actively doing drugs in your parks and at your schools, and we're just going to be okay with it. Harm reduction is a failed ideology that should not be promoted in the city of Spokane, because if we want to help people get off drugs, we shouldn't be helping them do drugs.
Ms. Dixit, you may now begin your closing statement.
Can I take my rebuttal if I have one?
Yeah, if you would like.
Awesome. So doing drugs is already illegal. I think a lot of you know that because you're in health class, you learn about fentanyl and learn about vaping and all those things in your health classes. So I think throwing the book at people is not a way that is effective to deal with this issue, because then we would have already solved it. So making sure that we are treating people with respect is huge, and also understanding that our service providers, medical folks know that doing harm reduction is more effective to get people in treatment and making sure they aren't dying.
Thank you. Now you may begin your closing statement.
All right, thank you to the students, teachers, staff, and reporters who helped make this happen. I'm running to build progress for the people, not just the powerful. I love our city and believe our young people deserve to grow up in a community they are proud of, and hopefully one they would want to stay in. Throughout my career, I have mentored college and high school students, teaching sex ed to sophomores at the community school right across the street, and empowering our youth to change wherever they can, whether in schools or over in Olympia with their state legislators. Movements are intergenerational, but are sustained by young people wanting to build a future they are proud of. I want to take my experience of teaching, collaborating, organizing, and advocacy to City Council so I can make our city more accessible, more affordable, more accountable, and a place where we all truly belong.
Thank you. Mr. Bingle, you may now begin your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you all again for being here. It's been a pleasure to be with you. As a pirate, it feels like I'm a little behind enemy lines, but it's still great to be here with you. I want to thank my opponent, Sara, for being here, and I want to thank her for running. It's incredibly important that we have people willing to step up into these positions, because we are determining the next steps of the city. I'm excited to be endorsed by our local police, by our firefighters, by our city's largest worker union, AFSCME Local 270, and I'm excited to be endorsed by many of our most prominent business leaders. I think that by being able to bring those people into the same room, bringing people from across the aisle together, is really important for us to move forward. Every piece of legislation I've passed at the city level has been bipartisan, literally every piece, and I intend to carry that forward as we go into the next 4 years. Thank you so much.
We are going to go into another 5-minute intermission to switch. Would you guys come shake hands, and would you give our candidates one more round of applause?
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. We are now about to start our third debate, so if you all could take a seat, that would be lovely. There's been a slight change in order of our debate, so now our City Council District 3 will be going. And the candidates for this race are Zack Zappone and Christopher Savage. And let's see here. Our new student moderators for this debate are Senior Lucy Woods and Junior Ray Correa. Let's give a warm welcome to our candidates.
Okay, this first question is for you, Mr. Zappone. Why do you want this position?
Yeah, thank you all for being here. It's great to be home at North Central. I'm Zack Zappone. I'm born and raised here in Spokane and a graduate of North Central, the same school my grandpa graduated from and the same school I teach at today. And I'm running for this position for re-election because I believe in one simple thing, and that's that everyone in Spokane deserves a fair shot, especially working in middle-class families. I went away to the East Coast after graduating from college, and I worked my way through college at McDonald's and graduated from Georgetown and Princeton. I came back to be a teacher at some of our highest poverty schools and created after-school programs for kids. But I saw a lot of the challenges and struggles that we see in our community, especially when it came to mental health, transportation issues, job opportunities. And I knew that no matter how hard we worked in the classroom, it was still challenging to get in. So that's why I got my master's in public policy from Princeton, came back to be a teacher and run for city council. Since being on city council, I've been working to deliver results for working in middle-class families, especially when it comes to safer streets, safer neighborhoods, affordability, housing, and want to keep moving the city in the right direction and not move backwards.
Thank you. Now we'll go to you, Mr. Savage.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being with us this evening. It's great to see so many young faces in the audience to show that the civic engagement is going strong with our youth. Why I want to run for city council is I want to be a public servant. I want to be your voice up on the city council. Right now, our city council is not listening to constituents. Our voices are lost up on the city council because they are not listening. That is why public safety is becoming such a problem downtown and across our city. Homelessness is going into our neighborhoods with the scattered sites model, and we are seeing a lack of affordability for not only our generation, but the future generations being priced out of Spokane. I am running for Spokane City Council to be your champion, to be your defender, to be the person that will listen to your voice and take your voice up there so that we know that we can have a Spokane where we all belong.
Thank you.
And Chris, we're going to stay with you. What would be your top policy priority if you were elected?
My top priority and policy directive when running for city council is to make sure that our downtown and our city is safe. Right now, when I'm doorbelling and hitting the doors, there is the number one top priority of everyone that I talk to is public safety downtown. People are not taking themselves, they're not taking their families, they're not taking their children downtown because there's a safety concern because of what is going on in our city. We have 32% of our buildings downtown that are not occupied because businesses are leaving. We really need to focus on revitalizing and making our city a vibrant place to live for everyone because this is our economic engine. This is the heart of our community. If our city downtown core goes down, it is not going to look good for our future. We need to make sure that Spokane won't be turned into a shadow of its former self, but be turned into the vibrant, livable city that I know we can be.
Thank you. Zach, same question. What would be your top policy priority if you were elected?
Yep, my top policy priority is fighting for working middle-class families who are struggling to get ahead. I want to be clear. My opponent says he's a champion. He's a champion for the wealthiest of Spokane. Just this week, he said that he would use $100,000 of city money that would be directed to West Central neighborhood to improve our sidewalks, our crossing. He would have that money go to subsidize a wealthy donor of his who made an improvement to a sidewalk that he's required to do for all properties in our city are required to improve their sidewalks. That opponent, that donor, Larry Stone, has spent $75,000 to get him elected and is expecting these types of returns in our city. And that's what my opponent is championing, the interests of developers and real estate agents. I'm trying to champion policies that work and deliver results for working middle-class families. We have a CHADS clinic here at North Central High School because I know the struggles of mental health. I know the struggles of getting access to doctors, and I set aside the funding to make sure that happened here at Spokane. So those are the types of results that I'll focus on and deliver results for our community.
Rebuttal?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I'd like to correct some misinformation my opponent just said. There is not $75,000 going to my campaign from Larry Stone. It is not that at all. You can look into my independent expenditures. Everything about my donors on my contributions from my PDC. And what I would like to say is I am proud of my donors. Each and every one of them is a true blue citizen of Spokane. We shouldn't be vilifying different citizens here that have lived here for a long time and just want to help out our city. And he is correct. He said that there was a vote this Monday that was to vote down at West Quadrant TIF that was going to help out.
That's your time. Thank you.
For you, Mr. Zappone, homelessness has been a rapidly increasing issue in Spokane. What further actions would you consider to combat this situation?
Yeah, we all see the struggles of people living on our streets every day. And it's important to recognize the different ways that people enter homelessness, from unaffordable housing, from drug addiction, from losing your job. There's a lot of different reasons people enter homelessness. And so we need a comprehensive, balanced approach to addressing homelessness. That's why I've supported the Home Starts Here ordinance, which is about healthcare, HOME, healthcare, outreach navigation, economic security, and multidisciplinary engagement. I don't think we're doing enough right now. That's why I want to work on fixing the problems and moving our city forward. Our next steps are working on ordinances that give officers the tools and the discretion to interact with people living on our streets and require them to go to services if they're refusing services. But we also need facilities. Our jail is at capacity. I know earlier you heard that we have jail beds, and that's not true. Jail's turning away people every day. And that's because we don't have the facilities, whether it's sobering beds, mental health facilities, or jail. We need to have a balanced approach to make sure that we're getting resources to people and helping them get off the street.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, similarly, homelessness has been a rapidly increasing issue in Spokane. What further actions would you consider to combat this situation?
Well, what we should certainly be doing is promoting failed policies like the home ordinance my opponent has created for our city. It has done nothing for our city but make the problem worse. We need to make sure that we are actively doing what is the will of the people and the voice of our citizens, which is reinstating Prop 1, which was voted in through by 74% of our voters. We need to listen to the voice of our people because that is not what's going on in City Council right now. We need to also change our contract service providers that are in charge of our shelters and our transitional housing to better partners that have better models like UGM and Adult Teen Challenge. Adult Teen Challenge has a 12-month addiction program that has a 70% success rate. These are the metrics and these are the stats we need to make sure that we are actively using your tax dollars wisely and efficiently. We only have so much money here in the city and we need to use it in the right way.
Rebuttal.
Go for it.
All right. Proposition 1 banned camping within 1,000 feet of schools, parks, and playgrounds. It didn't work. I voted to bring it back, but it didn't have the votes. And I want to solve problems instead of going back to past failed policies. We need to look solutions to move forward. If we reinstitute Proposition 1, that will mean that there's areas in our city that camping is allowed. And I believe in making sure that camping is not allowed everywhere in our city, not just downtown. Otherwise, it ends up in our neighborhoods and in your backyard, in your alleyway, in your driveway. And that is not what we need. We need a comprehensive strategy that addresses it citywide across every neighborhood.
Rebuttal?
That's going to be your last one.
Yes. So the home ordinance, I just want to give you some stats. In the past 3 months since the first phase, there has been zero enforcement of illegal camping, zero acceptance of services when we come to reach these individuals. That does not sound like a sound, successful policy. It sounds like it's a failed policy, and with the new phase that's coming out, it does sound like we're actually going to reinstate Prop 1, which is exactly what the voters wanted and what is needed. We need to make sure we have these enforcement capabilities to make sure you all are safe so you can experience your parks, your playgrounds, and have your children come downtown.
Thank you. This next question is for you, Mr. Savage. The cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and housing is a main driver in this issue. What policies would you implement to make housing affordable for young adults and families?
So what we need to do, or what I will take up to Spokane City Council, is so there are 10 areas around Spokane that the comprehensive plan has given us to make sure that we open up more land for development. I go off of a free market principle where we can satiate demand by having enough inventory and bring the price down naturally. If we do it artificially, we are going into a boom and bust cycle that has been a part of our economic history for a while. We need to make sure we are addressing this in the right manner, and we're also making sure that we are building more homes. We have enough apartments here. We want homes for people to grow and have a family in. We need to make sure that we have the American dream available for not only our generation, but for the next generations. We are pushing people out of Spokane in the wrong manner, and they're going other places, taking their talents, their skills, and other things that we need here in Spokane. By opening up more Spokane on the more land on the edges of Spokane, we can do that by providing more housing and more housing options like modular homes and prefabricated homes. So we can actually address this in a multifaceted way, so it won't just be one approach.
Thank you. Mr. Zappone, the same question. The cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and housing is a main driver in this issue. What policies would you implement to make housing affordable for young adults and families?
Yeah, everyone deserves to live in a neighborhood in Spokane where it's affordable to live, and that's especially young people who are struggling to move out of their parents' homes. I'm proud that as your city council member, I've implemented policies that's led to record housing permits year over year over year. 3 years in a row, we've seen a stabilization in housing prices. We've seen rent start coming down. And those policies that my opponent was mentioning are what led us into our housing crisis in the first place. He wants to restrict the type of housing that we have in our city, wants to build single-family housing that young people are unable to buy out after graduating high school or graduating college. You can't go buy a single-family home. We need to have a variety of housing options throughout our city, from apartments to duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. We need every type of housing in our city, and we need to be moving forward as a community, not having these old failed policies that cost us more, spread out more sprawl, more congestion, and raise our costs throughout the city.
Thank you.
And Zack, you're going to start this next question. With a rise in gun violence in schools in recent years, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
Yeah, I definitely understand the need to have safe schools. I was here last year when we had a swatting incident, and it was scary, thinking that there was going to be a school shooter. And I don't believe that police officers are the solution to that, though. We don't have examples of that across the country. There's been school shootings where police officers failed to respond. What we need is solutions that are community-oriented and partnerships with our law enforcement. Police absolutely play a role, and they should have direct access to our community. We talked about having access to cameras, so if there is an incident, they can see where the situation is immediately. We also need to address other concerns that we have in our community that a police officer wouldn't be the right person addressing, which is vaping in our bathrooms. It is a major issue, and we need to be talking about drug prevention, drug programs, so that kids have those resources. And we also need more resources in our schools to make sure that we can address those instances and follow through with them.
Thank you. Christopher, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
We need to make sure that our schools are safe for our students and our teachers, and that's what these schools and these facilities are for, our schools and our teachers. We do not need police officers in here making you feel uncomfortable. We already have community safety specialists as well as resource officers that when I graduated here in 2009, they did amazing work here trying to de-escalate a lot of situations that happened here. And if they do need to call the police, they know who to call and they have a direct line to them. So no, we do not need police officers in schools because it's facilities and places that are meant for teachers and students.
Thank you.
Mr. Savage, what role should the Spokane City Council play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
Thank you. So we all belong here in Spokane. No priority should be given over one group or another where we are giving special treatment to a small group or a small cadre of people. We need to make sure that we are being equal to everyone here and representing everyone here because we all belong here in Spokane. We also need to make sure that we are addressing this fentanyl crisis that is running rampant through our city. There is a lot of young people that are getting addicted to that right now, and we need to make sure that we are helping them in the right manner, and that will help out these groups in the best way possible. Addiction does not discriminate. We need to make sure that we are helping those people that need the most amount of help, so we are giving them a full, vibrant life that they can actually live in our city and contribute to our society in the best ways possible.
Thank you. Mr. Zappone, what role should the Spokane City Council play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ+ rights, and gender inequality?
I'm glad my opponent believes that in Spokane we all belong, because that's an ordinance that I passed that changed our city motto to "In Spokane we all belong." That is an exact role that the city has, is to promote our values in our community. That is a community where everyone belongs, where we have inclusive neighborhoods, and that goes for all types of people in our community. I've promoted and supported legislation to protect LGBTQ rights, supported immigrants, and supported the most vulnerable in our community. Unfortunately, my opponent has been at forums where he stated the complete opposite of what he just told you right now. He said that we should not be wasting taxpayer dollars on small populations of people, especially LGBTQ people, who include myself. I've known Chris since we were 12, when we went to school here together and served on student government together, and I called them and said, your comments are concerning to me. And I received a text message back from him that said, I'm too busy to talk to you right now. I'm running my campaign. For someone that's known you for so long, I don't know why voters would expect you to believe and support them. City council members have a duty to represent all people, to show up and value and represent our values.
Thank you. Mr. Zappone, this next question is for you. What approach would you take to ensure the safety of citizens downtown on a daily basis?
Yep. And safety is incredibly important, not just downtown, but everywhere in our community. Downtown is particularly different with our wide sidewalks and the concentration of people. And so we need to have different strategies and tools to support that. As your city council member, I've invested in multiple efforts to do that. We've invested in co-deployed mental health resource teams with police and firefighters so that they can address the concerns that we have in our community, get people access to resources, and get them off the street. But we also need to move forward as a community, and that is where I've been advocating for a balanced approach. I want to be completely transparent and straightforward here. The status quo is unacceptable. It is unacceptable to have people sleeping on the street and using drugs. I've voted to ban open drug use. I've voted to ban camping citywide. We need now to work towards the facilities to get people off the street. That's sobering beds, mental health facilities, and jail as an option of last resort.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, the same question. What policies or programs would you establish to ensure the safety of citizens downtown on a daily basis?
Yes, I would just like to address something really quickly that my opponent said, that I am not in communication with him. I go down to Monday City Night Hall legislative sessions every Monday night, and I've been doing that for about 6 years. He has plenty of opportunities to talk to me in person rather than send an impersonal text asking what's going on. So that's a bit disingenuous in my opinion. For one, we can do is we can ensure and reinstate Prop 1. Again, that was voted into by 74% of the voters here in Spokane. You never see that. That shows that there's a will of the people that want active, good measures that are going to have enforcement downtown that will help you all experience the beauty of our downtown, the wonders of Riverfront Park. We need to make sure that you all are coming downtown and experiencing your city the way that you want to. So we need to have more of Prop 1 that will have enforcement of 1,000 feet of no camping for playgrounds, parks, and schools, because that is what will make Spokane and our downtown the safest possible for you guys to enjoy.
Thank you.
And Chris, you're going to start this next question. More students are using public transit due to the recent STA Youth Zero Fare policy. Do you feel there is enough safe and efficient public transit in Spokane? And if not, what would you do to keep our youth safe, both on and waiting for transport?
I think there's already plenty enough public transport here in Spokane, but what we can do to help make sure that students that are accessing those buses feel safer and feel a little bit better about using those services is making sure that we are actively coordinating our bus times with our school times. As you heard from former candidates up here, we need to make sure that we are actually being efficient with those timetables and making sure that they are going with where you're going to school, because if you don't get to school on time, you're going to be late and you're not going to be able to see or understand what's going on in the classroom because you're about 5-10 minutes behind. So we also need to make sure that we are investing more in our rapid flashing beacons. Those are the crosswalks that have all of the bells and whistles that help people cross, as well as our students cross, very busy streets. I live down in the Balboa South Indian Trail neighborhood, and Indian Trail is like a river of traffic. You cannot get through that in certain times, so we need special tools and treatments and public tools to make sure that you are crossing the street safely, and we're actually making sure that our cars are not speeding, because there's been some traffic fatalities because of high speeds on Indian Trail.
Thank you. Zach, do you feel there is enough safe and efficient public transit in Spokane? And if not, what would you do to keep our youth safe, both on and waiting for transport?
As someone that rides a bus, I know that we need more public transit. There's no question about it. We don't have enough. I also understand the challenges of when the buses are running late. I see it in the classroom when people come late to school, and I know the stress of that if you're trying to get to your job. So we need more reliable transit. We need more frequent transit service. And more importantly, we need safety. That's why as a board member on STA, I've invested in 20 new safety ambassadors who are in our buses today. They're throughout the whole region, there to be a resource in case something comes up, or and to call in safety concerns and in partnership with the police. We also need to address the safety concerns at STA, at the plaza. But I want to talk about something even more important, and that's being a champion for people who ride the bus. I've been your council member, and I know that when people when students had struggles getting the bus for the first time, STA wanted to require you to have a bus pass within 2 weeks. And I heard your concerns, and I went to STA and said, that's not right. We need to have bus passes on our student IDs, and fought for you guys to be able to have that representation options.
Thank you.
And continuing with you, Mr. Zappone, how would you work to protect legal immigrants afraid of ICE raids within our city?
Yeah. People deserve to stay with their families, whether an immigrant or a citizen or here legally. Everyone deserves to be with their family. My opponent, as at previous debates, said that the city has no role in federal policy around immigration. I see the impact that has. We've had students from Ferris High School that have been illegally detained and taken away from their family. We have workers at Walmart in our stores who are being taken away from their families and ripped away from their communities and taken out of our city. And so we have an incredibly important role as city leaders to fight back about these policies that are coming from the federal government. And so I've been proud to sponsor and support legislation to support Keep Washington Working, which says that our local law enforcement will not collaborate with the federal ICE agents, that we will work to protect people, that we will search for different opportunities and events to keep people safe in our community. And there's more work we have to be done. There are a lot of challenges that the federal government presents, but our job as council members is to fight for people in our community.
Have you. Mr. Savage, how would you work to protect legal immigrants afraid of ICE raids within our city?
Well, right now we are doing as much as we can because, as my opponent is not going over, is we do not have any purview over federal authority. As a public official and elected official for as long as he's been, he should know that we have no control over what happens when the federal government comes in here if they need to. We need to make sure that we are making laws and ordinances and resolutions that aren't giving you the false impression of safety, because that is even more dangerous than what is going on. Like for instance, the Safe and Welcome in Spokane and the Keep Washington Working Act. Both of those do nothing for us. With the Safe and Welcome in Spokane, that was supposed to prohibit ICE individuals from coming into the public right away, and that just does nothing. Our police chief, Chief Hall, said we have no enforcement, we cannot push them back, we cannot do anything. I'm not going to give lip service to you. I'm going to be genuine. I'm not going to be this person that's going to give you a false impression of what's going on up there. I'm going to tell you the truth and be straight up. We do not have the authority or the ability to stop federal oversight from coming here in Spokane if they deem it so.
Rebuttal.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if what you just heard. Earlier he said he believes everyone belongs in Spokane, and right now he said, but there's nothing we can do if you're an immigrant. So I think it's incredibly important that we have leaders and elect leaders who are going to fight for everybody in our community, especially our working and middle-class families, not just coming up and saying that there's nothing that we can do. I've been proud to sponsor that legislation, and it has real results. I don't know if you've gone and talked to immigrant communities and listened to what they're asking for, but they're asking for the city to step up and do stuff. And that's what I'm a council member doing, is stepping up for our community members who ask for it.
Thank you.
We will now move to closing statements. Mr. Zappone.
I believe I go second.
Mr. Savage.
Okay, that was fast. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. It's great again to see many young faces here that are wanting to be civically engaged, because you are our future here. So thank you for being here. Please vote November 4th, and make sure if you are 18, vote for November 4th. This is going to be an important election because we are fighting for the soul of our city here. We need to make sure that Spokane is a safe, vibrant, and clean city for your futures here to be available. I'm going to be your champion. I'm going to be your defender. I'm going to take your voice up on city council. That is my promise to you, that we are going to make sure that your voice is being heard. So please come down to City Hall, be civically engaged, go to your neighborhood councils, be all you can be, because that is what makes America great, is you all and our future. So thank you all for being here this evening. Go Red and Black.
Thank you. Mr. Zappone?
Yeah, thank you for being here today. This is exciting to see so many people engaged in our community. Young people, you have an opportunity to go out and share what you learned today. Even if you can't vote, you can talk to people who can. You can share on Facebook and get people to turn out votes. I want to be clear about the choice in this election. My opponent is championing the policies of the wealthiest in Spokane. He's also said that he supports President Trump sending in armed troops, the National Guard, to patrol our streets. These are not the policies that we want in Spokane. We want to do things that are helping people in our community every day. I have the results that have proven that, and I want to keep fighting for working and middle-class families, not the wealthiest in our community, because I know that everyone deserves a fair shot. Thank you.
Thank you both, and that is the end of this debate.
Can candidates come shake hands, and we'll move into another 5-minute intermission. Thanks, y'all.
Hi everyone, we're going to now start our fourth debate for the evening. This is going to be for City Council District 2. One of our candidates, Alejandro Barrientos, was present and excited to debate. However, due to a family emergency, he needed to leave. We will now have our other candidate, Kate Telis, answer our debate questions. So please give a warm welcome to her.
Thank you. Why do you want this position?
Hi, everyone. I'm just so excited to be here because high school civic engagement is kind of my jam. You guys are all the future, and so I just want to thank you. Part of the reason why I want to run is because I believe we need to elect honest candidates who believe in transparency and believe in accountability. At the local level, I believe that one person can truly make a difference. Right now, our nation is far too divided, and we need, at a local level, to come together, have the tough conversations, and for the benefit of the public good, come up with lasting solutions. I'm not interested in fighting with people. I'm interested in problem solving.
Thank you.
Kate, what would your top policy priority be if you were elected?
I'm a former prosecutor. I used to work with victims of domestic violence felonies, so obviously I've worked closely with law enforcement. I've also worked with in the nonprofit world, working with unhoused families with young children. So the issues that we're seeing downtown is something that I think my experience can speak to. We need to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward when it comes to outreach with the unhoused population. Right now, and I saw this when I did a ride-along right after I announced my candidacy, we are using police officers to be the first point of contact with people on the streets. There is a lack of trust there because of lived experiences these people have had. We need to start using social workers and people with lived experiences to meet people where they're at. Those people, that will, I believe, actually create people willing to take us up on services. Right now, that's not happening, not at all. And so we need to address it.
Thank you.
Ms. Kate, homelessness has been a rapidly increasing issue in Spokane. What further actions would you consider to combat this situation?
Well, first of all, I would advocate for what I just talked about, which is a third agency of social workers to be the ones doing the outreach. One of the benefits of this is it would free up the police officers who are really taxed and don't have a lot of time to handle drug crimes and violence. This would free them up to actually address the violence, address crimes. We could have more foot patrols within downtown and around the plaza, and more police bike patrols, which will ultimately make us all feel a lot safer.
Thank you.
The cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and housing is a main driver in this issue. What policies would you implement to make housing affordable for young adults and families?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows this, but right now we have 30,000 units that we need for housing that we do not have in our current market. That is part of what is causing the homeless crisis that we currently have. So I, of course, would incentivize developers in any way I could at the city level to be building affordable housing, to be building mixed-use housing like apartments and condos and duplexes. I also am a huge proponent of increasing density within city limits around public transit. There's some really great examples of that in the Perry District, for example. We have people living close together around shops, around coffee shops and restaurants, and we have great public transit. I think every neighborhood needs to feel like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, with a rise in gun violence in schools in recent years, do you think there should be police officers in schools?
No. I was until I announced my candidacy, the chair of Moms Demand Action. And the thing that's going to keep us safe is having common sense gun law reforms. We do not need, as one of the other candidates said tonight, teachers do not get paid enough to protect us, and that won't necessarily protect anybody. Having guns in our schools just creates more violence. I have a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old, and school shootings are one of the things I fear most, and no kid should have to go to school worried about whether or not there's going to be an active shooter. So we need to make sure that we're keeping our guns out of dangerous people's hands, and making sure that we're doing everything we can at the state level, at the federal level, to make sure that we are regulating such dangerous items.
Thank you.
Kate, what role should the Spokane City Council play in addressing social issues such as racial injustice, LGBTQ rights, and gender inequality?
It is the role of elected leaders to take a stance on issues. Even if they may seem not germane to the city, I believe that everything can have an equity lens. Every policy that the city council comes up with can look at how is this going to treat people of color? How is this going to impact people in a lower income group? Can we do anything to move people forward? Can we do anything to maybe make the scales of justice just balance a little bit more? The community workforce agreement recently is a great example of that. It had to do with whether or not, with public contracts for $5 million and over, and it classified and prioritized hiring of certain people. There's no reason that all policies can't have such an equity lens.
Thank you.
Ms. Telis, what approach would you take to ensure the safety of citizens downtown on a daily basis?
Well, we need to make sure that we have adequate lighting. And as I talked about before, we also need to have increased foot patrols. I recently had 2 campaign events, one at Terrain and then one at the Cracker Building, and found myself needing to walk on foot underneath the Division Street Bridge at night. It was not the best idea, but I have to say, given the lighting, it was extremely helpful. Had I seen any police officers or more public traffic, honestly, I would have felt safer. So the more we can engage in legal activity downtown, the better it will be for all of us.
Thank you.
Kate, more students are using public transit due to the recent STA Youth Zero Fare policy. Do you feel there is enough safe and efficient public transit in Spokane? And if not, what would you do to keep our safe? Oh, goodness, it's late. I'm so sorry. If not, what would you do to keep our youth safe, both on and waiting for transport?
So I think STA is doing a great job where it is currently available. I support the Safety Ambassador program that Zappone was talking about. I also think it's important that we have cameras on buses. However, recently, I myself was a little bit fearful when I took my 4-year-old and 10-year-old to take the 4 downtown, and I realized that the bench where we were going to be sitting was literally about this far away from cars that were going 30 miles per hour or more. We need to think about how people are getting to transit. We need to increase their access. There are parts of my district, in the west part specifically, the Latah Valley, Hankman, Eagle Ridge, West Hills, they don't have public transit. So we need to increase them and then also make sure that we are guaranteeing safe access to it.
Thank you.
Ms. Kate, how would you work to protect legal immigrants afraid of ICE raids within our city?
I am probably one of the few people in this room who's taken constitutional law. And I will say, without a flicker of doubt, that we are in a constitutional crisis. Right now, we are seeing warrantless searches by ICE officials. We are seeing the president use powers that were and never have been his. We need elected officials to stand up and call this out. We need people like Zappone and myself to raise awareness and let people know exactly what is going on here. I'm a proud supporter of Safe and Welcome in Spokane, as well as the Keep Washington Working Act. These members they're part of our community. Families are being ripped apart, and that is absolutely unjust, and we need to stand up and not tolerate any of it.
Thank you.
This will be our last question. What policies or programs would you establish to combat fentanyl and other drug use in Spokane?
Yeah, I think we need a multi-pronged approach. Of course, we need prevention. We need to strengthen our addiction services. We need to support harm reduction policies, making sure that people aren't using the same needles and therefore spreading disease. We need to fund treatment and recovery support, and we specifically need to get people in the city with lived experiences. There are many people who are recovered addicts who have much wisdom to share. And so just like I believe that we need to talk to police officers about how best to enforce crime within our community and how best to enforce camping, we need to talk to lived experience, people with lived experience who can talk to us about mental health and addiction, and we can really move the needle there.
Thank you for your response.
And now you can please give us your closing statement.
Okay. Thanks all for being here tonight. You give me great hope. I just really want to encourage everyone who can here to vote, and even if you can't, if you're 16, you can register. I would also love to see anyone volunteer on my campaign. I'm very excited to create a Spokane that is safe, that is affordable, that is sustainable. We have a climate change crisis on our hands. We need to make our planet safer for all of us. So I really hope you guys all get involved. Come down to City Council, testify. It would be a welcome change. And thank you so much. I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you.
We've come to the end of our night, and I feel like I get to do this. Would you please give your Civic Engagement Club a huge round of applause for putting on this event?
Thank you for attending our school board and city council debate this evening. Being involved in your community through events like this and others is an extremely important step toward creating a better future for yourself and generations to come. But being involved in Spokane's community doesn't stop there. Voting is one of the most powerful ways to voice your opinions. As we hold this mock election tonight, we appreciate everyone who participates. Please remember to hand in your ballots on your way out so your vote can be counted. For more information and future updates about events like this, follow NC Civic Engagement Club on Instagram at nchs_civic.engagement. If you are a registered voter, please remember to mail your ballot before November 4th. Thank you again for being here tonight. Get home safely and good night.